One of the more successful additions to the current console generation, the Xbox One, PS4, and Nintendo Switch, isn't a game or the increased power of the consoles themselves. This addition wasn't really even a discussion before the release of the PS4 or Xbox One. It only came to exist after the launch of these systems. That addition would be the creation of a photo mode within some of the various games this generation. Photo mode is a pretty self-explanatory mode, where players can pause the action within the game and take control of various camera aspects and features in order to take a snapshot of that freeze frame moment. While the PS4 and Xbox One did launch with the ability to take clips and snapshots with a simple press of the button, photo mode is a mode within a game that allows for much more freedom to edit and customize moments in a game. The inclusion of a photo mode definitely isn't the first time that players have been able to snag images in the games that they play. There have been various ways on PC for players to manipulate aspects in games and take pictures. Most of these weren't actual parts of the game though. The history of creating images on consoles though isn't very extensive however. Halo 3 would allow players to take a snapshot of their recorded matches in the game's theater mode. Yet for the most part of the Halo series is the only example I could scrounge up during my research. The game supplying players with a way to take images of gameplay before this current generation. Aside from that, I couldn't find much that related to a photo mode before a few years ago. If you have any idea of any other games before this current generation, feel free to let me know. The history of photo mode may have some loose ties before the PS4 and Xbox One, but the true start of its history begins a few months after the initial launch of the consoles. Infamous Second Son is one of the earliest first-party exclusives for the PS4. The game released March 21st, 2014, and was one of the first few games that really looked like a next-generation title at the time. It was a game I was excited for and enjoyed at the time, but it hasn't really had much impact on the generation overall. Well, that isn't necessarily true, as it actually was the first game to add a photo mode, and basically created a photo mode that is standard in most games nowadays. A few weeks after Infamous Second Son launched, a patch updated the game with a new mode called Photo Mode, which let players stop the action and manipulate the camera to create their very own screenshot-worthy moments. The reason for the inclusion of Photo Mode was because of fan feedback. Players wanted to take photos of Second Son Seattle, much of that due to how good the game looked at the time. In a 2014 interview with the PlayStation blog, Sucker Punch software engineer Matt Durasoff explained how the mode came to be. There's nothing novel about setting up shiny screenshots, but it was always something we did internally. For Second Son, the motivation for adding this feature came completely from the fans. Right out of the gate, people were sharing awesome shots without any special tools. Giving people a way to hide the UI was an obvious patch, but then we thought, what if we could provide some more power? Open up the game engine a little bit and let everybody tweak the visuals the way we already do in-house, explained Durasoff. It's a bit surprising that one of the most popular additions to games this generation is mainly due to players playing around with the PS4's ability to take screenshots and share on social media. Yeah, that is the case with Photo Mode, along with Sucker Punch taking things up a notch and letting players experiment with tools that developers have been using for years. Sucker Punch and Durasoft didn't really expect the mode to take off like it did. We hoped that it would be embraced by a small core of enthusiasts who motivated us to add it in the first place. The response and popularity of the mode was much greater than Durasoft and the team expected. As you might guess from our expectations, quite surprised, we know that people love to share photos. We know pausing the clock and looking at the FX in flight is mesmerizing. We know the game has an insane level of detail, but the magnitude of the response and what people are doing with it has blown us away, explained Durasoff. Infamous Second Son's photo mode turned out to be more popular and successful than many would think, and the inclusion of the mode slowly began to creep into other games. The Last of Us Remastered launched with photo mode included, and many other games that launched in 2014 also ended up adding the mode to their games. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor is one of the first games that I remember playing around with the game's photo mode. Stopping the action just as you chopped off a orc's head and getting up close and seeing the moment in a new angle was pretty cool. In the years since photo mode was first introduced in infamous Second Son, the popularity of using photo mode has only increased. Whenever a highly anticipated game releases and it launches with a photo mode, social media begins to get plastered with a plethora of snapshots from a player's time with the game. Horizon Zero Dawn, Marvel's Spider-Man, Shadow of the Colossus, and most recently Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2 are just a few games that I've noticed that have really provided some excellent in-game freeze frames. It's interesting how this generation was first introduced to photo mode thanks to Sucker Punch and infamous Second Son. And now that the generation is close to ending, Ghost of Tsushima sort of takes things up another level. Another Sucker Punch developed game. I guess we owe a lot to Sucker Punch for the photo mode that we know and love today. The history of photo mode hasn't been a very long one, but the mode has changed and improved rather rapidly in a short time that has been around. The ability to play with filters or have a character emote are just some of the additions that have occurred over time. At this point in time, an open world game not having a photo mode is more strange than it having a photo mode. The popularity of the mode isn't likely to die anytime soon, especially in the social media driven world that we live in. I mean, companies and developers basically get free marketing if they include a photo mode, as any game with nice scenery or graphics is likely to provide some moments worth capturing. It should be interesting to see how photo mode changes in the coming years. Ghost of Tsushima gives us a somewhat good idea of maybe where the direction of photo mode could possibly go, with a more focus on a GIF photo mode, basically, or a video version of photo mode. With that said, the rise of photo mode has been a quick one. It may not be a game changer for video games, but has turned out to be one of the biggest underrated successes that the current generation has provided. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.